Hello, welcome back again. Last week, you saw I was working on this video link there, where we were trying to resolve the water coolant leak. But in doing so, we snapped a bolt. So if you're interested in how to remove the bolts and you didn't see the last video, make sure you click that link. We did the gaskets for it, but the first gasket we put in leaked, so we made a gasket. So again, click that if you want to see how we did that. Today, well, the end of last week's video, we stripped the injectors down, cleaned them out, rebuilt them, and we put them back in an attempt to calm down the smoke, but it didn't do anything to calm it down any. So what we're going to do today is we're going to strip the head off it. I know it sounds a bit in depth, but that's what we're going to do. Because what we've got planned for it, we intend to take it some distance, so it's always worthwhile just knowing that everything's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the head gasket, reseat all the valves, do an inspection on it, the hot plugs, pretty much everything that I did in the second video. Also, before we start, I think there is a storm coming, so we have to hurry up. So first we're going to start by dropping the coolant, taking the breather off, manifold bolts out, turbo off, exhaust manifold and intake manifold off. We'll take the glow plugs out in the garage and we will do a test on them, make sure everything's okay with them. But for now, let's get started pulling this apart and just see if we can get it done before the rain comes. If you ever remove a cylinder head, always start by draining the coolant, followed by removing or moving anything that's in the way. Makes your life easier. Right now I'm disconnecting the injector lines before moving on to the brake booster vacuum line. This doesn't need to be disconnected, however I feel like it's just best to do so before I break something. I'm now removing the breather hose and the vacuum hose for the turbo. And then move on to the 3 locker nuts on top of the rocker cover. It's a bit stuck, so I'll give it a couple of light taps and then remove it. So these are rockers. So what happens here is your camshaft inside the engine, which is controlled by your timing belt, pushes on what they call push rods, push the rockers up. When you push this end up, it rocks on the central shaft and pushes a valve down. So underneath there, as you'll see when we get it in the garage, is a valve. So you'll get 2 valves per cylinder. You'll get an inlet and an exhaust. They operate open and close, open, close, open, close, open, close. You'll see these operate all over the place. And so you've got 2 valves per cylinder. So you've got 4 cylinders, 8 valves. So what we're going to have to do is we need to loosen and take off the pressure from the valves on every cylinder. Then we need to lock it all down so we don't lose anything. What I do is I cable tie around these all the way down, and it just helps if in case anything is amiss. These springs aren't going to push it all off and you're not going to lose it all over the floor. It keeps everything together. 5/16. Once you do this, there's no going back without doing your valve clearances, so just be sure you've got the tools to do it. The tools you're going to require for that are the video of me rebuilding this engine, potentially a Haynes manual, a feeler gauge, and a sprinkle of patience. So what this is doing is taking the pressure off the valve. So in effect, it completely messes up the operation now. So, like I said, you will definitely have to do your valve clearances. Right, so if you read the manuals, the cover that we just took off here, you'll see that it's called the valve cover, otherwise known as the rocker cover. Rockers, all they do is rock back and forth, like I said, and open and shut valves. So you do get different names for it: rocker cover gasket or valve cover gasket, and that's what that is. It's just made of cork. So if you do buy one, and don't be alarmed, it is as it is, do the job. But in this case, this one's had its day. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take these bolts out, take the rocker off. Gasket kits for this engine and the 2 1/4 diesels and petrols are really cheap. For about 30 quid you can get a comprehensive kit of gaskets. It's always worth having lying around in your garage for those occasions. How many of you watching actually do work on your own vehicles? Do you take them to a garage and have someone do it, or do you do it, or are you looking into start doing it yourself because the cost of living, etc.? Is it just forcing your hand at doing it yourself, or are you just curious? Just feel free to write essays in the comments. I do like reading. Yeah, just let us know. Any questions as well, feel free to post them and I will answer as best I can. And if you are a mechanic, don't be upset because at the end of the day, this is just how I do it. Those little caps sit just on top of your piston, on top of your valves. You see it in there. When you lift the rocker off, you make sure they don't drop out. So you've got to keep an eye on them, make sure they're not stuck with the oil onto the bottom of your rockers. As I said, we've released these bolts all the way down, so now you can lift these up. We've also strapped, you see where there's a spring, we've also strapped in between the springs to hold the bits together, because if these caps come off, then that's going to shoot off and you lose your spring. If you lose the order, you are in a lot of trouble. So it's always best to keep them in the same order. Rocker bolts. So I'm just making a map now of the cylinder head, the rockers, and then I can mark down where each bolt came from, and you can never get it wrong then. When I get a bit of spare time, I am thinking about designing these out of some stainless steel and having them laser cut. If you are interested in having a set of these, one for each section of the engine, and one for each engine, for example the 19J, 3¼ petrol and diesel, I'll do the set for each one. If you are interested, just let us know in the comments and I'll get it done. Shove him in there, he ain't going anywhere then, is he? Just like that. What we've done there, we just put him back in. And it just again keeps everything together. Keeps everything all together. You can now put him out the way and you're not going to lose anything. When doing engine work, I would advise having a pot with a lid lying around. Just keep it for your engine bits and bats, at least that way you won't lose anything. And that's the last one. Should have 8 of them. 2, 4, 6, 8. So there we go, we're good. I will get a pot or an aerosol tin lid in a minute and we'll stick them in there. So same story again, I just made another one, this time named bush rods and valve. So we've got the rear of the block, all the way through the cylinders, all the way down to the front of the block. So starting at the front, 1, 2. That's cylinder 1 done. When I disconnected the manifold from the engine, I found that it does support the turbo quite well, so I didn't remove the turbo entirely. I'm now removing the injectors to allow access to the head bolts beneath them. A top tip, when you remove the injectors, always put your nuts and washers back on. This way you don't lose any and you don't drop any down the engine or anywhere you shouldn't have them. When you take your cylinder heads out, you can't just go hell for leather and take the bolts out. They're under a lot of stress, these heads, so they could buckle, and so there's a sequence that you should use to take them out. And if you look at, for example, a Haynes manual, you'll see that in the manual you've got the layout of that head. So if you look at the shape of that, the arrow showing the direction of the timing belt, which is the front here, and you've got all the bolts. They're all labelled in the manual, 18 to 1. And this is a tightening sequence, so you tighten them up in the order of like that, like a spiral. ending on number 1, or starting at number 1, 2, and then it should go outwards like that. So you tighten the middle down first and put the pressure outwards. When you're taking it off, you bring it in. So you start down here on 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, all that stuff all the way through. You end up with number 1 being the last bolt you take out. So that's what we're doing now. Once all the bolts have been removed, I found that the head was really stuck on there. So I got a piece of wood to act as a lever and a chain through the lifting eye. Then I had to show it who's boss. Get off! I put a... oh God, I can't see. Put a chain, a lump of wood, just as a bit of a lever. And we've put that through the lifting eye with a shackle. And I've just lifted it and lifted the thing and levered it on the wing. And we've broke the seal underneath the head. So now it does move. Just to show you. So you see, cylinder head is free. But during doing this, I think I've definitely found why it's smoking. And it isn't because of the valves. And it's not because of oil coming past the piston rings, which I thought it could have been. It's simply because, and I'll show you, if you look down inside there, you see that reflection inside the air in the manifold. You see that oil. We've got a failed to either the seals are failed in the turbo. So what it's doing, oil's feeding into the turbo to cool it and lubricate it. It's going past the seals into the air intake, which is why we've got all that in there. That's going into the engine, being combusted and fired back out the exhaust manifold. Since recording this video, I've been doing some research, and I have found that a high crankcase pressure can cause this issue. So it might not be the seals in the turbo after all. A high crankcase pressure can cause the oil drain line from the turbo to the sump of the engine to back up. The pressure in the crankcase pushes the oil back up the drain line of the turbo into the turbo cassette or cartridge. Once in there and the oil fill from the top is combined, the oil will go sideways and out of the seals and down into the manifolds. This seems to be the issue that I am seeing. I have witnessed high pressure coming from the top of the rocker cover, so it is possible that we do have high crankcase pressure. The causes for this are piston ring failure, scored barrels or sleeves. Looks like we've got some more work to do after all. And that's why we're seeing so much smoke. It's not because of anything top end, but I've got to this point and then I found that. So, but that said, at least we'll know everything's good in the engine. All the valves are good. Check the the hot plugs and make sure everything's okay in there, so at least it's not going to fail. Oh God! Why Landrover said? It'd be fun, they said. Well, there you go. Before you try and lift one of these cylinder heads out, make sure you do that one vital thing: eat your Weetabix, or at least have a friend nearby, because these are cast iron and they're not light. So what I'm doing now is I'm just filling the cylinders with some diesel. This will let me know if there is an issue with the cylinders or piston rings. You will expect to see some loss. However, if you lost a lot over a short period of time, you would know there's definitely an issue, as is the case with this engine. After filling these cylinders up, I went in the house to make a cup of coffee. I came back out and most of the cylinders were empty. It seems like we've got bigger issues: piston rings or cylinders. Get all the injectors stored safely, get all the nuts, bolts and so on put away. So there you go. We've got diesel in all the cylinders. We've got oil in the intake, which there shouldn't be. So it's either going to be a turbo rebuild or a turbo replacement. If we're going to rebuild it, I'm learning as I'm doing it, so you'll see it firsthand. It'd be cheaper to do that than it would be replace it, but I mean, what we're going to do, I don't know, I'm not made of money. So we're going to get the head cleaned down, put it on the workbench in garage, and then we'll go through everything start to finish like I did last time, whereas you only saw pictures that time. We're going to see it all actually happen. So I'll see you in the garage.